Well, that should excite you, right? Come on, I mean, if that doesn't excite you, then you should check your pulse. You might not be breathing. A lot of the numbers up there, most important one, right? 173 little ones said yes to Jesus during gig across all of our locations for the very first time. 779 volunteers. Come on, like that's unbelievable when you just think about that. I saw a guy one day, he'd come in and lead his group at gig, and then right after gig, he'd run in the bathroom, put a shirt and tie on, and head to work. Like volunteers made this happen. Thank you so much if you served at gig. 129 scholarships, your giving making a difference there. And here's a number that wasn't on the video, but 13,349. You know what that represents? The number of snacks giving out over the entire thing, right? That's a lot of snacks. That took a lot of giving from you. So thank you for your faithful giving and serving at Northway. And I say this, and please hear me, I mean it as a nudge, not as like a sharp elbow to the ribs or anything like that. If you have been at Northway for some time and you are not serving or giving, I'm just here to tell you you're missing out on a major part of what it means to be a follower of God. So let me just pray here. I want to pray for those 173 specifically, all right? So Lord, I thank you for the blessing of gig and your covering over it these many weeks. And God, I think about each one of those. Would you put influencers in their lives? Strong men and women of faith, families, parents, grandparents, to help move them forward in this young faith that they said yes to during gig. We love you, Lord, in your son's name, amen. Hey, this summer we have been studying the Beatitudes. They're found in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5. The Beatitudes are what is the opening to the longest recording sermon of Jesus that's found in the Bible. The sermon is called the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus didn't name it that, right? Like he didn't step up that day and say, today my sermon is titled the Sermon on the Mount. And I'm going to begin with a quarterly financial update. No, he didn't do that, right? We named it the Sermon on the Mount. What he did, he gathers his disciples and his followers, and he steps up onto a hillside where he can be seen and heard by the crowd. And I am fighting allergies, so if I'm hacking and coughing during this, just put up with me, please. He opens with the Beatitudes that we have been studying for the last couple months. So here they go. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger for thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. I've loved that one. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. And then this is where we were last week, these three verses that sort of close out the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sakes, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. And today, I'm going to pick up right there with the very next four verses. And I've titled this sermon, The Sermon on the Mound. And before I commence, just want you to know that I put quite a bit of thought into this wardrobe for today. What do you think? All right, yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Mom. I actually do now put some thought into what I'm going to wear because a couple weeks ago, I was looking back at an old sermon series. I wanted to reference something. It's like 5 or 6 years ago that I did week 2 and week 7 of. So I looked it up online. And you know, if you see our sermons sometimes online, they'll put all of them up, like the whole series, and they'll put these little thumbnail pictures of whoever preached that week, and then like the title underneath. And I noticed in week 2 and week 7, I was wearing the same exact thing in both things. Like, I mean, the same exact thing. So now I do. I pay a little attention to what it is that I'm wearing so I don't look like an idiot on the website. So today's text, it's actually like, you need to think of it of a bit of a bridge from the Beatitudes that we've been studying. These 4 verses then bridge us into the Sermon on the Mount. And if the Beatitudes were basically what to expect as followers of Jesus, like Jesus says, you're going to go after me, you're going to follow me, this is what you can expect. These 4 verses, I'd like to think of them more of what Jesus expects of us as followers. Well, what does he expect of us when we call ourselves believers, Christians, followers, whatever the word is? And just a quick little FYI, we'll take a 2-week break the next 2 weeks. We have 2 weeks that our lead pastor, Dave D'Angelo, just a couple things he thinks are so important for our church to know right now in this season. And then we'll come back like in 3 weeks from today and we'll go into the Sermon on the Mount. We'll be in it all the way through the fall. So let me be right before I dig in here, let me say this. This sermon, when I wrote it, when I've been processing it for the last couple weeks, when I was sort of done with it and wrapped it up, I looked at it and I want to say this. It is primarily written for those of you that are here today across all of our locations that would consider yourself to be a follower. You know, whatever degree that is, but what I've written is for those that are here that say, yes, I'm a believer. I am a follower. And if you're here today and you're not, like let's just say that you're unconvinced or you're still trying to sort this out. A couple things, if that's you, I'm so glad you're here. Like thrilled that you are here and you're not alone. Northway is a safe place for folks to come and try to sort through and figure out their faith. But if that's you and you're here today, when I describe what Jesus expects of his followers, I want you to be thinking, do I know anybody that he is describing? Do I know anybody that is living out their faith in the way that Stephen's just sort of explained? And if you know somebody that says they're a follower and is living it out the way that I'm going to sort of walk us through these next, go talk to them. Go talk to them about your faith. You know, when I was a teenager, I was what I would consider a non-believer, certainly unconvinced. And I met a couple that were living out these verses. And I just was drawn to them. And it's because of them and their reflection of Christ that led me to the Lord. If you are unconvinced today, find somebody that these verses describe and go talk to them about their faith. So here it is, verse 13. It says, you are the salt of the earth. This is what Jesus' expectation of us is. But if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. So let's dig in here. Jesus is saying, you are salt, followers. You are light. Now hear me, he's not talking to a particular person in the crowd when he says you. He doesn't say you like, hey, Peter over there, you're light. And John, I see you there. Man, you are salt. No, in the Greek, the word you are salt, you are light, it's plural. He's talking to everyone of his followers. You are salt, you are light, it's plural. Do you know what the plural word for you is? Yins. Come on, Pittsburgh. Like, right, that's what it is. Yins. Yins is salt. Yins is light in that. You got the power of the Spirit. Yins are Jesus. If you all are my disciples, he's saying, a true follower, this is what I expect of all of you. So let's break this down a little bit. Jesus uses two metaphors to describe what he expects of us. He describes one of them, he says, you are to be salt. In the time which Jesus is speaking, track with me here, the salt was of extraordinary value. It was so valuable that it was sometimes used as currency. Roman soldiers at this time would be paid in salt. They would receive a salarium, it was called, of salt. That word salarium is where we get our word salary from. The thought of salt today does not carry nearly the significance that it did then. When Jesus would have said that you are salt, it would have been a compliment. You would have received it as almost like a tribute, like, whoa. Salt, a couple things it does, right? It brings out flavor, doesn't it? Chefs would say that it releases and improves the taste of food. Back then, yes, but yet today too. When you put salt on something, it's supposed to improve it. So as for Christ followers, Christians, the places where we go, our neighborhoods, our workplaces, should improve because we are there. Like as salt of the earth, sons and daughters of God. Our relationships, our situations, our experiences, the things that we get involved in should improve because we, followers, are there. We are not there to indict and accuse and condemn. We are there to improve. We are there to release. We are there to lift people so that they can see Jesus through us. So more importantly than salt being used like the flavor back then, it was primary purpose was to preserve, right? No refrigerators, no freezers. If you had meat and you wanted to make it last to feed your family for weeks, you would pack it in salt. It would prevent it from spoiling and decaying. And Jesus is saying, as his disciples, we are to be pressing back the culture that maybe is tending to spoil or just decay things all around us. The world should see nothing but hope and life in us, not despair and death. One more thing salt does, it causes thirst, right? The little local pubs around me where I grew up, they'd always put a bowl of salted pretzels or popcorn or salted peanuts on the bar, right? Why? Eat some, get thirsty, buy more beer. Genius, that was what they were trying to do. See, we are living in a world today where there are a lot of people that have not tasted and seen that the Lord is good. And after being with us, they should have a thirst for more of what it is that's satisfying us. Do people have a thirst for more when they come out of an experience or a conversation with you? Are they more thirsty to know about what it is that's satisfying you, where your hope come from? Or are they just leaving conversations stressed and anxious? We are to be salt, improvers, releasers, preservers. And people should leave thirsty for more of the hope that's inside of us. That's what Jesus expects of us as his followers. The second metaphor Jesus uses is that we should be light, right? In the Gospel of John, this is what Jesus says about himself. He says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And then in the verses that I just read, he says, you are the light of the world. Now know this, he's speaking of a reflected light. Think sun and moon, right? The moon cannot light up the night by itself. It has no source of light. It is reflecting the light of the sun to light the night. And so are we. In of ourselves, we don't have divine light in ourselves, but with Jesus living inside of us, it should produce light. What an incredible compliment Jesus is saying to his followers. You're the light of the world. But what a responsibility that comes with that. Ephesians 5:8 says, for at one time you were in darkness, but now you are the light of the Lord. Walk as children of light. Jesus went on to say in the verses I read earlier, a city set on a hill couldn't be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. What's Jesus saying there in this second metaphor of light? Like really simple. In this time of this sermon, when he's saying this, there's no electricity, right? There's no walk in a room, flip a switch, and boom, like light. At this time, if you were traveling, think about it, no street lights, it's pitch black, and you would hopefully during your travels be able to spot a city on a hill. You'd be able to see sort of its lights, so the houses lit up there in such extreme darkness, and it would be a navigational pinpoint for you. The lights from that house up on the hill or that city on the hill would provide you direction of where to go. And then he brings it down to the home, right? He says in a home at this time, like if you know, they didn't have electricity, they had these little oil lamps, maybe one or several in the home. And you'd light the little oil lamp, you wouldn't set it on the ground. Certainly wouldn't put a basket over, which it says in there, right? You'd put it up on a lampstand, you'd put it up on a shelf so that it would light the entire room. He is saying that at your work, at your schools, in your community, be light. Be a navigational pinpoint to give people direction to Jesus. Not just though out there in the city, but in your home, to those closest to you, your family, your parents, your spouse, your kids. Please hear me. You cannot be Mr. Christian guy out in the community doing all these good deeds and then be a jerk at home. In the same way, you cannot be like this amazing Christian person in your home to those that know you best and then be horrendous at work. You are to be light and salt everywhere, all of the time. Let me put up a couple pictures here for you. One is this guy. Anybody know who this guy is? This guy's name is actually Jeff Cavalier. He's the founder of Athlean-X. He's a personal trainer. He specializes in the science of weight training and nutrition. His videos, they promote like how to weight train properly to avoid injuries, do's and don'ts. A lot of his stuff is aimed at like older athletes. He has recommendations about supplements and protein products. I watch his videos all the time for years. I pay attention to his recommendations. I believe like over the last many years, he's like improved my strength and even my health for years. Does anybody know who this gentleman is? This is Sam Zion. He's sometimes known as Sam the Cooking Guy. Every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, Sam puts out a new recipe video. And he challenges us not to make the same stuff all the time. His recipes are like simple and doable. He cooks outside a lot of times, grills and flat tops. And I just find the dude to be funny too. I watch him every week. I've made dozens of his suggestions. Full disclosure on old Sam the Cooking Guy though, advisory here. Sam the Cooking Guy can have a bit of a potty mouth. Just saying. So do not watch Sam the Cooking Guy with your 5-year-old grandson in the next room, because he may pick up on some of that colorful language and use it to describe dinner later that day. So just a little tip there. Why did I show you these two guys? Because if you look them up, they are considered to be at the top of YouTube influencers. One in the field of health and training and the other in the field of cooking. Have you ever heard of that term before, YouTube influencers? If not, I looked it up. Here's the definition. YouTube influencers are ordinary people that gain cultural influence through grassroots and often modest beginnings. They are content creators with substantial followings of engaged communities. Their content is consistent and engaging. It is shared, liked, and anticipated by broad audiences. Let me just ask the obvious question. Are you a Christian influencer? Are you salt and light? Everywhere, every day. Jeff Cavalier has sort of influenced my cardio habits, my routine. Sam has influenced some of my eating and cooking. They're YouTube influencers. Are you a Christian influencer? Does your presence improve and preserve relationships and settings? Do people have a thirst for your content? Is your content consistent? Is it engaging? People want to share it with others. Are you engaging audiences that want to know about the hope and the faith that you have? Are you light? Are you providing direction? Please hear me. When it comes to this thing of light and let your light shine, nowhere in the Bible does it say that your faith should be private and hidden. That is not in the scripture. It's making it very clear here. Your light is to shine. You know, I turned 63 last week, and I realized that I have actually been in church ministry for over half of my life. And throughout that time, I've had what I always call, like, I don't know, the word I use sometimes is 3 like driving forces. These are the things that have always driven me. I've been anchored in these 3 when it comes to ministry. And the first one is this: I love the local church, and with all its flaws. There's lots of other great nonprofit and other unbelievable ministries out there, but for me, it's always been the local church is where I want to do ministry. Second driving force is Pittsburgh. I love Pittsburgh. I love this town. Never desired to do ministry anywhere else but right here. And the third one is this, that I've been really committed to next generational leadership development in the church. Churches must focus on making room and raising up future church leaders. John Nuzzo is the pastor at Victory Family Church, just up the road in Cranberry. And we're about the same age, John and I. And I consider John a peer and a friend. And on 2 occasions, I've been in rooms or gatherings where John was speaking, and he spoke to this third driving force, this raising up next generational leadership for the church. And he uses this Old Testament analogy, this generational leadership transfer of faith from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. And both times he was speaking, when he was going through this next generational leadership thing, I was like, yes, like that's what's always been in my heart. He's just like much better at putting words to it. And last Monday, he and I got together for a coffee, and we ended up talking for a couple hours about lots of things going on. But we talked specifically about this Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob thing. Like, because they were all living at once, these 3 generations of faith. And very loosely, like if I had to just put an age group on the Abrahams and the Isaacs and the Jacobs, and you could put yourself in one of these groups, like very loosely, there's no cutoff date here. Oh, you're an Abraham. No, like just loosely, the Abrahams, they represent the 60-plus folks that maybe are here. Like your kids are not only out of the house, but they're now independent. They're sort of on their own. I am an Abraham. Okay, and that generational snapshot. The Isaacs, I don't know, like 35-ish, up to maybe close to 60. You could have anywhere from young kids, teenagers, maybe college students. It's a very career-minded generation and season. You're busy, a lot going on at that stage of life. The Jacobs, I don't know, like teenagers or 20-somethings, maybe even into your very, very, very early 30s. You're determining what's next. Your first career maybe is happening. Could be single. Maybe you're married with little ones. And in the church, John Nuzzo, what he says is that too often the Abrahams do not make room for the Isaacs, and the church loses its Jacobs. And that's always just struck me. It's heartbreaking. I've been to churches. I've seen churches where there are no Jacobs. I transitioned the lead pastor role to Dave D'Angelo Before I turned 60, intentionally I did that to make room for an Isaac so that we will always have our Jacobs. Now, I'm going to talk more about that in a sermon in October that I'm working through. And I'm going to talk to that about like this generational leadership and generational generosity. But on my way home from talking with John, I started thinking about like, how does this apply, this Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, how does it apply to this concept of salt and light? These generations that still must be salt and light to the world. And it got me thinking. And that's why I titled this sermon, the Sermon on the Mound, because I'm going to throw a few fastballs at each one of those generations right now when it comes to salt and light. So get your mitt on. Abraham's. Let's start with Abraham's because, yes, I am an Abraham, and I think I'm going to be hardest on the Abrahams here. Number one, fastball. Stop insulting the Jacobs. Stop it. Stop insulting their attitudes, their work mentality, and anything else. That's not salt and light. Try to understand them and be salt and light. Have you ever handed a young child a legit flashlight, like a mag light or something? When I hand it to my 5-year-old grandson, he turns into a laser gun, like instantly, and I hand it to my 2-year-old granddaughter, and she flips it upside and it's a microphone. Like, shake it off. She's like singing and dancing around. They love, little kids love flashlights, but when you hand them a flashlight, you know what the first thing they do with a flashlight is? Shine it right in your face. Like, they just shine it right in your face. Even if you tell them, do not shine that in anybody's eyes, like right in your eyes. They do it instantly. Jesus said this. He said, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father and who is in heaven. Abraham's, they can't see your good works or God's glory if you are blasting them in the face with your light. Let your light shine, not your complaining or your picketing or your anger shine. Let your light shine. Jesus says to be salt, and salt preserves. Abraham's, my challenge to you, what are you preserving? Fastball. Stop preserving your preferences. Preserve the mighty and strong things of faith. Stop fighting and preserving your preferences. If I hear one more senior citizen tell me that we should be doing more hymns and bring the choir back, I'm going to lose my mind. As an Abraham, truth be told, I'm not overly fond of some of the music we do here. What I am fond of is the Jacobs are here. Stop telling me it's too loud. It's not been any louder in the last 10 years. It's our ears as Abraham's. Our ears are more sensitive. Stop it. Abraham's, come on, be salt. Be light to a world that desperately needs it. Stop being that get off my lawn guy. Jacobs, you're next. I'm going to come back to the Isaacs. Jacobs. Your light is often like a dimmer switch. And you turn it up real bright when you're with your Christian friends or when you're in church, and you dim it way down when you're in the world. Here comes the fastball. Often you are so influenced by the culture that you can no longer be an influence for Jesus. You should not blend in. You should stand out. Blending in is a bad plan. It's not salt and light, and it's a waste of life. Man, Jacob's know biblical truth. Be salt and light, even if the culture is telling you something different. Isaacs, I want to come back and sort of finish up with you. The text says, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but they put it on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. Your priority in this season is the lives that are in your house. It's honoring your parents. It's being salt and light to your spouse and to your kids. That is your priority. Everything else is second. Everything. It's not climbing the corporate ladder or overwhelming yourself with hobbies and pastimes. It's not overwhelming your kids with sports or every other activity that comes their way. Your priority is leading your family to faith and being active in the local church. It's being salt and light there, first and foremost. You are busy and you are leaders. Be busy and lead those that are the closest to you, that are in your house. Be the light to those in the house where you live. My challenge to all of us today across all locations, be salt, be light. Be the person that the unconvinced, the non-believer would see you and engage you, whether that be at work or in your neighborhood, in some activity or something you're investing yourself into, the places where you go and you bump into a non-believer, someone that's unconvinced, and they know you're a Christian and they look at you and say, okay, like that guy, that gal, she got something different going on. There's a hope in her. There's a way that he goes about handling things. There's something different about their family. There's something different about the way he treats or she treats her employees. There's just something different about the way they talk. And I heard that he or she's a Christian. I want to go figure out what's going on there. As a teenager, that's what I did. I saw something from a young couple that I'd never seen in my life. Found out they were Christians and got to know them, and over a series of time led me to the Lord. Let's be salt, folks. Let's be light to a world that desperately needs it. Let's pray together. God, thank you for this church. Thank you for its investment in next generational leadership from its onset. God, help us continue to meet and reach the generations. And Lord, that's the church, but I just pray for each person here that's part of this church to be salt and be light to a world that desperately needs it. In your Son's name, amen.